Coming up on UGTV. A special session of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we lift up your name and give you thanks and praise. Especially, we lift up our unified government. And on this evening, our prayers with our mayor and the delegation that are traveling with her and visiting with our sister cities in Austria. And so, as we pray for them, Lord, we also pray for those as the fire trucks and the police cars and the sheriff and the paramedics do their duty to our community, Lord. They're out there, our first responders, and taking care of us. And so surround them with your protecting care. And we lift up our elected officials as they do the duty of their office in this meeting tonight. Surround all of us who call this place home, and allow your Spirit to be upon us in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. I will ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions.
Thank you. Tonight, we have two distinct parts to our meeting. The planning and zoning part of the meeting is handled first, followed by the regular commission meeting. I will ask the clerk to read the statement, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland is unable to be here, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large district and Mayor Pro Tem this evening. Commissioner Hal Walker, at-large District 2, is unable to be here. Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1. Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, is joining us via phone. Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, is unable to be here. Commissioner Harold Johnston Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has three options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration together with the statement specifying the reason for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the Mayor Pro Tem will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioner makes their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and city for the record. The Mayor Pro Tem and Commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the Planning and Zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the Commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes, yes, I have on number 3120 and on SP 2016-63 and on PR 2016-19.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
The same one with her, but I want to add vacation petitioning number UE 2016-10.
Commissioner Markley.
Same vacation application as Commissioner King just stated.
And I need to disclose proponents on consent item B2 and non-consent C1, and opponents on consent item special use permit, vacation application C1.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone application, item number 13120, Gary Henry. Change of zone from CP1 Plant Limited Business District to CP2 Plant General Business District for Schlitterbahn East Retail Development at 1111 North 98th Street. Recommended for approval. Special use permit applications. Item number 1, SP 2016-59, Judith Rodman with Paces, Inc., renewal of a special use permit for emergency shelter to provide care for children in police protective custody who have been removed from their home at 6031 Nogard Avenue, recommended for approval for 10 years. Item 2, SP 2016-63, Mark Meyer with FJ Legends, LLC, special use permit for firearms training facility and shopping destination for Frontier Justice Retail Center at 1700 North 100th Terrace, recommended for approval. Item 3, SP 2016-73, Yvonne and Steve Ferguson, renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land to park 2 trucks at 226 North 72nd Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Vacation application, 1 item, UE 2016-10, Brian Ayala, vacation of utility easements at 3742 North 112th Court, recommended for approval. Plan review application, 1 item, PR 2016-24, Stephen Kirkpatrick, preliminary plan review for a small hospital facility at 10544 Parallel Parkway, recommended for approval. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by 1 vote to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Mayor
Mr.
Pro Tem.
Richardson.
Yes. There's been additional information submitted through engineering for item C1 on the consent agenda. We would like to set that aside. That's utility easement 2016-10, item C1.
Item C1 is set aside. I will entertain a motion for approval of the remaining.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Roll call.
Roll call, Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to the set-aside item, C1, vacation application, UE 2016-10, vacation of utility easements at 3742 North 112th Court. I will turn it over to Mr. Tobin or Mr. Buck.
Thank you. I think I'll just recognize Mr. Richardson with the planning staff, and he can explain the situation we have, the recommendation that was made by the Planning Commission, the stipulations that they had on it to move us forward today, and why we set that aside.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. The Planning Commission recommendation was to approve this utility easement vacation if the engineering department found that there was no impacts to the adjacent waterway and drainage way based on their study of the site. We've contracted to have that analysis done, and there appear to be some impacts from that. Given that situation, I think we'd recommend that this be referred back to the Planning Commission so that they can analyze the additional information available regarding the drainage easement and make a more appropriate recommendation.
So moved.
We will still have to hold the procedure on this, commissioners, but
So,
our recommendation from staff is that we return this to Planning Commission, as Mr. Richardson said, so we could go forward with that.
in the meantime, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is any person present who would like to speak in favor of the petition. If so, please step to the microphone at this time and give us your name and address for the record, and you will be given up to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in favor? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hello. My name's Byron, and I'm the petitioner for this easement vacation. If you guys allow me to, my engineer and my surveyor, we put it together some information for you guys to look over if it's any time or you allow me to. There's some dot map that will show the drainage and the easement and all the grading on the lots in the whole subdivision.
Okay, and we can hand that to the clerk or Mr. Richardson. The consideration this evening is that we will be discussing sending this item back to Planning and Zoning.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My engineer and myself, we're trying to get this in. We've found in FEMA 100 years flood plan in this area is no flooding. Also, we went for a title record. It shows also that it's no flooding in this area. And if you see on those, in the last page, it shows a dot map. It shows the drainage way in this area goes through the back and actually putting a house in this lot 75, it shouldn't impact the drainage. Apparently, when they built the subdivision, obviously those lots were intent to build homes on it. The reason they did not build it, I don't know. There were the only 2 lots vacant in this whole subdivision, but you know, has been approved for many years to get it houses on those lots. But of course, it will be up to you guys to decide. We only asking for remove a small portion, and reducing the easement slightly should not affect the access to or operation and existing storm sewer. So, you know, we put it in your hands. Hopefully you can help us out to put the right house that we want to put there. And we just, you know, if you see in the plans in the back page, it is not a whole lot we're asking for, so it shouldn't affect anything.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone present in opposition to the vacation item that would like to speak on this? And if so, now is your time to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Steve Vest, Piper, Kansas. We're adjacent property. We were notified approximately a month prior to the previous meeting that was supposed to take place. We didn't have time to really know what was being done. We sent an email to some of the staff to ask them questions. No one responded to us to ask what the report was for the easement. We had no idea what it was. So we came September 12th, found that they were going to build a house there, and remove the easement was the issue. And we have a huge flooding issue in our backyards. Most of us here are here to proponent to do that. I've got a slideshow I can show, but I feel like the recommendation to send it back to Planning and Zoning to give us a chance to work through this with the engineers is the right move, not to waste any more time of yours.
Thank you.
My name is LaShonda Glover. I'm also in Piper, Kansas. I'm one of the adjacent lots whose yard floods due to this issue. And I would say that I concur with Steve that if we had more time with the planning and zoning, that would be the right move for this.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Angela Dunn. I also live next to Mr. Vest and Ms. Glover. It appears that after the plans were originally approved, there's been additional flooding. We have some video and pictures to show that, so we do appreciate the consideration to send it back to planning and zoning to look at this. We would also appreciate, if possible, that that committee or engineer meet with some of us to look at the land and look at the flooding issues and look at the homes that have been impacted by the grade of the land and the where these homes are going to be built. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Long, and I'm also an adjacent property owner to this. I was just kind of notified by my neighbors. I don't know if I missed it in the mail or whatnot, but I will state that my backyard personally, every time it rains, it might not be in a floodplain, but it is definitely a water runoff zone, creating a 3 to 4 foot wide by several inch deep river, fast moving water back there. And furthermore, I'm a little concerned with removing even a small portion of the easement, as he states. If there does need to be work done in the future to expand stormwater runoff to fix the issue, if it becomes worse in the future, that could impact us negatively in trying to remedy this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item?
Mayor Pro Tem, the clerk's office did receive a letter in opposition from Karen Hayes and Seth Harris as well.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I will now close the public hearing. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments? Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I actually went and walked the property Tuesday, and I guess it rained Saturday, and Mr. Vest and I were in the one of the guy's side yard up the hill, and it was still muddy. And you really can't even tell from the pictures that from the west, there's a significant downflow of fields. There's a couple houses built there on 115th Street. So with that being said, what I'd like to do, Rob, is one, I want to send it back, but I would like that staff contact at least the 4 people are here and anybody else in their neighborhood that wants to talk about it so they can show you the video, show you some pictures, and then we can all, so we're not here again. So they can explain their side of it. And I guess it rained a couple of days after the planning and zoning meeting, and they've got some really good pictures with that. So I would appreciate it if the neighbors and staff would get together. I want this to be part of the deal.
Okay.
That they get together and talk to staff so we can come up with a quality answer.
Are there any other comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Richardson.
I think if we're going to need to meet with the neighbors, we probably should hold this to the Planning Commission meeting on November 14th, because I don't think we'll have time to get this done before the October meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, anything? Okay. So I will entertain a motion.
That was the motion. I apologize.
The motion is to send it back to Planning and Zoning, probably the November 14 meeting, with a neighborhood meeting to be held prior to.
Correct.
Thank you. And we have a motion and a second. A roll call on the motion.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That moves us to our Planning and Zoning non-consent agenda. You'll notice the first item received a unanimous vote for approval from the Planning Commission. However, the second item is closely related. The two will be heard together. The change of zone and special use permit will require a separate motion. Change of zone number 3119, Kevin Quick with KCK Development 2, is a request to rezone 10,000 Lafayette from CP-2 Planned General Business District to CP-3 Planned Commercial District for an auto body shop, car wash for the body shop, commercial development, Legends Honda, and convenience store. Special use permit SP 2016-64 Omaha Collision Company is for an auto body shop at 10,000 Lafayette Avenue. The Planning Commission voted 6-2 to approve the special use permit for 10 years. I'll ask the petitioner to step to the microphone and present the application. Please tell us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Mayor Pro Tem Kurt Peterson with Polsinelli, 6201 College Boulevard, Overland Park. The summary of the petition was well stated. Locationally, I guess we should set where we are. We're up in the greater, we'll call it the Greater Auto Plaza now, on the north side of Parallel, up where the existing Toyota and Honda dealerships are. North of Lafayette, Lafayette runs east-west, coming from 99th on the east, going west. And on the north side of Lafayette, you have what we call Lot 3 and Lot 4. Lot 3 is right up against Lafayette and 99th. That is the proposed site for the collision center you spoke of. And then just to the west of that would be the site of what would initially be an overflow parking lot for Honda. Many of you know that they need it for employees and excess cars. And then over time, they would, as you said, build a car wash that would serve the Toyota. It would not be a commercial car wash for the community. It would be for Toyota and Honda to use. So in short, that's the overall application. It's a rezoning on the Lot 3, the one for the collision center, would be rezoning to CP3, and then also a special use permit for that type of use is required. At Planning Commission, there was unanimous support for the rezoning. There was a 6-2 vote, which usually I don't need to explain it, but for a couple of the commissioners I know were there, the 2 votes, it's fair to say, were actually because they thought, and we were talking about an issue about whether or not the doors of the collision center could be open to get good circulation in there. And two of the planning commissioners actually felt like kind of what we were asking for we should be given, which is more ability to put the doors up. So they voted against it, not because they weren't supportive, but because they thought it should be more like what we were asking for. Well, the good news is, during that time, which often happens, we were able to work closely with staff and came to a compromise, an in-between position on that very issue regarding the doors, which is in your staff packet. So unless you want, I won't go through the details. But suffice it to say, to respect your time, because I know you have all the history from Planning Commission in your packet, I'd like to answer any questions you have, and we can go into any more detail you want, Mayor Pro Tem, but we would request and ask for your support tonight on both the rezoning and the special use permit.
Thank you, sir. I will now open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this item. If so, please step to the podium at this time and give your name and address for the record. Seeing none, is there anyone present in opposition who would like to speak on this item? If so, now is your time to come to the podium. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment, any commissioner? If there are no other, okay. If there are no other comments or questions from the public, I will close the public hearing. Any? Okay, Mr. Richardson, sorry.
I would note that regarding the changes that have been made to the recommendation of the Planning Commission, this will require 8 votes for approval of the applications as amended, and that would be both the change of zone and the special use permit.
And we will vote on the items separately, though, correct?
Correct.
All right. Any member of the commission have a comment or question?
Move to approve the change of zone application as amended.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Roll call: Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 8-0. That motion carries.
Move to approve the special use permit application as amended.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call on the item.
Roll call: Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 8-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a plan review application PR 2016-19. Mark Meyer with FJ Legends. We have the preliminary and final plan review for a retail center for Frontier Justice at 1700 North 100th Terrace. The Planning Commission has recommended approval by a vote of 8-1. At this time, I would ask the petitioner to step to the microphone and present the application. Please give us your name and your address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Matt Massalonis with Reese Massalonis Turley Architecture, 2000 Shawnee Mission Parkway, Mission Woods, Kansas. I'm also here with Bryn Brown. Bryn is right behind me with Frontier Justice. And I've got Kenny Miller and Matt Elsom, my associates, and Mark Meyer, the applicant, is here as well. I thought I'd take a few minutes and have Bryn talk real quick about what Frontier Justice is, and I'll kind of get into the application.
Hi, Bryn Brown. My husband Mike and I started Frontier Justice 3 years ago. We came up with the concept to create a next generation firearms training facility in Lee Summit, Missouri. We chose Lee Summit because that is where we're from. And the concept is to have an entertainment center as well as a retail destination with this firearms training component. We meet shooting enthusiasts of all levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And we founded the whole company on the concept of faith, family, and freedom. It's not just a catchy tagline to us, that's our core values. So much like you opened your meeting tonight, faith for us meant the National Christian Foundation owns 10% of our company. We donated it to them so that 10% of our profits go into community good. Family was the idea that entire families would come into our facility and feel comfortable there, and we would revive shooting sports for the entire family. And freedom for us was represented by the firearm that we sell in our retail location. So all of those things are really important to us, and we've spent the last 2 years working on branding Frontier Justice, and in doing so, I think we've done a great job in that we've gotten a lot of national recognition, not only from the firearms industry, but the fashion industry, because we also have a boutique and a cafe in our facility to, again, make entire families feel comfortable in our facility. I brought some brochures and pamphlets to pass out. And I also wanted to give you a copy of an article that was written in Pistol Magazine, which is on newsstands right now, recognizing our facility and how we're changing the face of the firearms industry. At our last meeting, I really wanted to say that I know that it's a little bit of a policy deviation as far as the outside of the building is concerned, and Matt's here to talk about that. But 3 years ago, when we decided to do this, we had a policy change at the Brown House, too. We took all of our money and invested it in this concept of Frontier Justice, and we put a lot of passion and a lot of work into that. We're not a big box, we're a mom and pop, and we look a little bit like a big box, but it's really Mike and Bryn Brown. So there's not deep pockets to try to change our branding that we've worked so hard on and make our facility look different. And it's just important that it look the same and that it feel the same. And I think aesthetically it's very pleasing, and I know many of you have been here, so we appreciate the review and appreciate your support.
Thank you.
So up on the screen, I'm just going to take you real quick through what Frontier Justice is, a little bit more about the building. It's intriguing just in the name itself, but as Brenda talked about, if you haven't been to the facility, I'm going to take you through it real quick. She talked about our mission statement and what they are, but it's important to talk about the reeds and the grasses and about the frontier, because you're going to start seeing that in kind of the branding statement and the feel and look of the building. This is our existing facility in Lee Summit, and you'll find that it is composed of a tilt-up concrete panel, and it's primarily for two reasons. One is for sound control, and the second is for security. Obviously, they maintain a fairly nice investment in arms, and they worry that someone would have access to those.
Sir, could you speak more directly into the microphone? We're having a hard time hearing
Sorry
you.
about
Thank
that.
you.
I tend to be a little too tall sometimes for this. So what I was talking about is that the tilt-up panels at the existing facility were predetermined because of the security and sound issues that they have to deal with. The sound, they don't want people to hear the sounds on the outside from the range, and they also want to make sure that people only have access to getting into the building at the entrance itself. The building is being composed of not just tilt-up, though. It also has steel and woods and masonry. And as Brent has talked about it, it really does have a real frontier feel to it at the front entrance with large porch overhangs. And as we get into the tilt-up, the symbolism of the reeds and the grasses is imposed upon the panels itself, which we've also multicolored. As you get inside, the cafe is inside. This is actually what really makes it unique. And if you're reading the article from Pistol Magazine, you're seeing that was an article that they had not asked for, but it really composed about the culture that they are trying to establish. So it is not just the boutique, it gets back into the store itself. They actually have a gunsmith on staff, simulation, and the range itself. So what is the new facility like? Well, it is similar to what the other one is, but we have done substantial increases on the exterior with the panel design, the finished fenestrations, much stronger landscape, and it's a much better pedestrian experience. The site location is obviously, it's on the east side of 435, north of France Family Drive. It's a 30,000 square foot, just under 30,000 square foot building, and what you're looking at is the facade actually faces the corner, and the range is to the east, the store is to the center, and to the west is actually where the trucks will deliver their materials. As you kind of look at the facility, it is similar but different. So we've actually added a very strong band along the base of the building, and we've accentuated the reeds and added additional windows, and we've worked with staff quite extensively on trying to make modifications that would make this feel even a better experience than what they currently have. Additional windows, we've actually got additional woods, and I'm going to take you around the building here. So this is actually moving from the front entrance. We're moving toward the west. You'll see that we've added fairly heavy landscape with rocks and reeds and grasses up against the building. Additional windows. This is actually moving toward the west side. This is now in the dock area on the west side, and we're moving around the west. We're back on the east side of the building. So this is the entrance from the east side, and we come back toward the main entrance. The focus is on the south side. I'd like to also add, too, that the size and proportion of this building is almost identical to what the Auto Mall buildings are to the north of us. And this is, as we get toward the main entrance here, lots of glass, lots of woods. And once again, the strong branding statement that Brent had talked about. I want to talk a little bit about the Tnemec coat, because that was actually an item that we had worked pretty extensively at. Rob, I've got some additional samples. So there was some discussion that Tnemec, we didn't want the building to be painted. And the building is not painted. It's actually coated with this Tnemec paint. It's a company that's here in Kansas City. It's established in 1921. And what Tnemec is actually an industrial coating that's been applied. This, what you're looking at and what Rob is handing out to you there are two samples that are thicker. The thicker samples are actually the two colors and the texture of what we're putting on the building, and the thinner sample is actually a stucco that would be considered to be acceptable under your current design guidelines. Relative to the Tnemec, the strength of this, when it's coated on the tilt-up panel itself, the first ASTM standard, and these are all ASTM standards that are driven here, when it's bonded to the concrete, which after it dries, the first test is actually they adhere a dowel to the material, and then they begin pulling on it. The concrete shears before the material actually does. So this is not a paint. You can't buy it at the store. It's something that is only purchased through the industrial coating company called Tnemec. They're providing us a full 10-year warranty, and that's actually exceeds what you're going to find upon any other material that you're going to typically buy from a paint or even a stucco. So a typical paint would only give you about a 2 to 3 year lifespan, and it would not be composed of any ASTM standards. A stucco is going to get you about a 3 to 6 year warranty. Tnemec's been used on a lot of great projects around the country. Four Seasons Resort, Scottsdale, the Milwaukee Art Museum, Indiana University, where the Hoosiers play, our adjacent neighbor in Nebraska Furniture Mart, which has also used a textured coating on the lower level. Paris, Las Vegas, a couple of Mies van der Rohe buildings in Chicago, which obviously are looking for long-range, long-term durability. Lambeau Field, Javits Convention Center in New York, the Bellagio, and even our wonderful Nelson Atkins shuttlecocks. It's also on the water tower just north of the Legends as well. The other item we talked about was tilt-up as well. Tilt-up's been used as a primary component upon retail developments, even here in Kansas City. Olathe Gateway, which is done by Bass Pro, is one. Olathe Gateway around the shops, the Avion, Briarcliff, Hendricks, Lexus, the brand new ones in Merriam, Olathe Tech Park, Olathe Point, the Hendrick Toyota, and Old Navy up in Zona Rosa. So I just want to make sure that everyone understood that we've worked really hard. This is really a fine balancing act where we have a material that works extremely well for this user. I think we've architecturally enhanced it to really be a wonderful retail experience. It's a strong brand. I think it's a strong building. We've fronted the corner. We've really identified that the building has all four sides and dealt with it appropriately. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I will now open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the item. And if so, please step to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And you will have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate the time tonight. Richard Napper, 909 Walnut, Kansas City, Missouri. I'm here this evening on behalf of EPR Properties as well as SVV1 LLC. We are in essence the master plan developer for the entire 350 acres, of which Frontier Justice is a component. Fellow team members with me tonight, Kurt Peterson as well as Chuck Stites. I am the lucky one that got to wear the tie and get up and speak to you, but I wanted to acknowledge them for all the work they've done on the master plan the past 3 years as well. As I mentioned, about 3 years ago, a team was assembled to jumpstart the development of this very long stalled project, the 350 acres east of 435. I think we're all well aware of the progress we've made the past 3 years, from U.S. Soccer to Dairy Farmers World Headquarters to the state-of-the-art auto and retail mall, and there's more to come. In regards to the Frontier Justice project itself on our master plan, this project has the full support of my team, EPR, as well as SVV1 LLC. Over a year and a half ago, we engaged conversations with Frontier Justice to make this location the next location, to bring them over from Missouri, the definition of a star bond attraction. We had to fight off neighboring communities to the south. We had to leapfrog neighboring states to the south to land them at our project, and we are very pleased they're here. The design of the building and from the architecture to the construction method has our full support.
1 minute.
We think the architecture fits well in context with the auto dealers. We think it is an aesthetically pleasing building and suits the needs of safety and sound very well. We were very pleased that the Planning Commission nearly unanimously approved this 8-1. We will look for your approval tonight and certainly appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in favor of this item? Please state your name and address for the record.
Marcia Rupp, 2816 North 46th Street. I think it's a great addition to the Out at the Legends, and people who have a firearm have to usually go to Johnson County or somewhere else to practice shooting, and Lord knows if you have a gun, you need to know how to shoot it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this item? If so, please come forward. Seeing none, is there anyone present in opposition who would like to speak to this item? If so, now is your time to step to the microphone. If there are no further comments or questions from the public, I will close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
Move for approval.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call on the motion.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Kiernan.
Aye.
Vote is 7-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. And that concludes the planning and zoning portion of tonight's meeting. We will now move to the non-planning consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the non-planning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion carries.
Next is our public hearing agenda to consider a resolution to adopt the Wyandotte County Library 2017 budget. First, we'll hear from County Administrator Doug Bach.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. During our budget adoption process this summer, when we move forward with our normal budget adoption items, we went through, discussed the hearing for the adoption of the library public budget. However, we did not publish the library mill rate as we went out and did all our other publications, which puts us in a place we need to go back and just clean this item up. And in doing so, we need to conduct a public hearing that is in timely nature with the publications we have done around this. So we are requesting that we hold a public hearing tonight to see that we can move forward with the library budget as we had presented to the commission this summer and was presented to us. So at this time, I would recommend that you move forward with the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this item. If so, please step forward to the podium, give us your name and city of residency, and you will have up to 3 minutes.
Chuck Stites, and I live in Edwardsville, and I am the vice chair for the library board. I just wanted to say that we held a meeting. There was we had a quorum, and it was voted on unanimously, and we look for their approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone present in opposition that would like to speak on this item? If so, now is your time to please come to the podium. If there are no further comments or questions from the public, I will close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have a question? We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call Johnson. Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion carries.
That concludes the portion of our regular meeting, and I adjourn us in that capacity, and I will call us back to order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. Mr. Slaughter, no, Mr. Brockman. Shall I read this item? So we have, oh, we do. We have a consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance wish to set aside any item on the Land Bank consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote. Do you?
Move to approve all items on the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the land bank items?
None.
Okay. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. That motion carries.
And that is the end of our agenda. That concludes our meeting for this evening, and I would like to thank you for your attendance. We are adjourned.